So welcome everyone to this talk about platform engineering. I don't think the sound is actually working. It should play the Mario intro theme, but it's not. Should it be black magic, I think? Okay. Well, I thought a talk about platform engineering, platforms, platform games. Let's do a Mario themed talk. But then yesterday at the speaker dinner, I heard we need to put an ice bear in every slide. I was like, how I'm gonna fit an ice bear into this? So I got to work, and it became quite late last night. But eventually, I turned Mario into an ice bear. So today we're going to talk about platform engineering. I think it's quite a hyped term over the last couple of years, and it's what we do as an industry. We kind of break. We like to take some hip terms and then run with it and do weird things with it, right? So let me first introduce myself. My name is Geert from Cruijsen. I'm from the Netherlands, and what I do is I work there as a principal consultant at a company called Zebia, and I help other companies build better software, and I do that through DevOps principles, cloud infrastructure, software architecture, and mostly the combination of those. And that's where platform engineering really comes into play. So let's take a look at platform engineering. As I said, it's quite a big hype. And if you look at some of the reports like Gartner, they predict that 80% of the large organizations will actually do some form of platform engineering by 2026. So show of hands, who is currently doing platform engineering or think they are doing platform engineering? Some hands, so still far from 80%. And of course, this goes about large organizations. You do need some form of scale to actually do platform engineering. Oh, now the sound works. So what I wanted to do is, before we get started and I talk about a lot of common mistakes that I've came across myself when building platform teams, doing platform engineering over the last 5 to 8 years with different customers, I wanted to check in with all of you and do some just some checks. So what are the current opinions that you have about platform engineering, using certain tools, etc.? So if you could scan this. Still see a lot of people scanning. So I see 48 people in, 50 already, so let's go. So I have a couple of questions that I just want to talk to you about, or check how you are currently thinking about that before I actually start doing the presentation and talk about all the mistakes that I've seen. So first of all, does your company do platform engineering? Yes, no, maybe a little bit? That's actually, when I did a show of hands, only a couple of hands go up, and now there's actually quite a large group. So it's good to see that this works better with the Finnish people. Okay, so we have quite a lot of people actually doing this, so that's good. Also, a lot of people sort of doing it, so that's hopefully you can learn something from this this talk. How many people are in your company? So most of you working for smaller companies. You see, platform engineering really is a trend that's really big at the very large companies, that's where you have the scale to often do this, but it's good to see that's also happening at smaller companies. Have you ever worked in a platform engineering team, or are you a consumer? So most people are building it. Okay, let's keep going. So this is a bit broader question, like what kind of platform are you building? Is that like a cloud platform? Is it more of an application platform, security, CI/CD, networking? And it could be all kinds of platforms that you create. It's quite all over the place, no security yet, but yeah, it's typical to see most of the companies are actually investing in cloud infrastructure, cloud landing zones, those kind of areas, to make it easier for people to actually build stuff on the cloud. You see already talked about it in the previous presentation, where it can take quite some time for people to actually get going in using the cloud, for example. And platform teams can actually speed this up within your company. And for the people who work in such a platform team, how do you decide what is being built? Some people just take the first item from the backlog and start working on it, I see. So, okay, this is a clear answer, so that's quite good. So a couple of more questions. Do you measure the use of your platform? Do you actually know who is using it, how they're using it, how often they are using it? Well, this is all over the place, so it's good to see that there are quite some people actually measuring this kind of stuff. This is a thing that I often see. I saw a lot of people are working on infrastructure as code. Does your company build reusable infrastructure as code templates? This is what I expected. We'll come back to this later on in the presentation. How do you expose your platform to your developers? Is that through a web portal or a ticket system like ServiceNow, or is it API or Git? Quite some people using Git. A few web portals being built. Okay. I think this is the last question. How do you actually build your current platform? So GitOps, some custom code, and some commercial tools. Okay. Okay, let's get back to the presentation. So, platform engineering. As I said when I started this talk, the term platform engineering is already abused quite a lot because all of the different tool vendors like to build tools and sell tools, and of course, when a term like platform engineering is hyped, then of course your tool will also do platform engineering. And this is actually what makes it so that the term platform engineering is used for a lot of things. Well, the original idea of platform engineering is basically this definition. Platform engineering is really a technology approach that can accelerate the delivery of applications and the pace at which they produce business value. So the key things here to remember is accelerate the delivery of business value. When I heard this the first time, I was like, we've been doing this for a long time, right? We've been doing DevOps. And if you look at the definition of DevOps by Donovan Brown, he said, DevOps is the union of people, processes, and products to enable continuous delivery of value to our end customers. So this is basically the same thing, right? We're enabling value. So is platform engineering the same as DevOps? Are they competitors? Are they going hand in hand? And I believe the last thing is actually true. I really believe that DevOps teams who build and run products from start to end build the best kind of product, best kind of software, the best kind of products. But the problem is that DevOps is kind of hard. In the last presentation, Jussi showed a graph of all the skills that he needed to know to actually build some software and run it in the cloud. If you have a team that runs and builds software from start to finish, you need to know a lot of things. You need to know about building the software itself, front end, back end, user experience, all those kind of things. You need to know how to deploy it. You need to know how to run or build the infrastructure, deploy the infrastructure. You need to know about CI/CD. You need to know about security, costs, all those kind of things. And it's just too hard. We don't have the capacity to do all that in a small team. So that's where platform engineering comes in, where we define certain services and provide those to our DevOps teams, so those DevOps teams can just take that from the shelf and then don't have to think about it anymore. See it as using platform as a service features from the cloud. Are you then not a DevOps team anymore if you're running such tools? You're still owning the actual implementation of the tools, except someone else is doing the hard work, heavy lifting of actually running the machines maybe in the back, right? So that's why I think DevOps and platform engineering really go hand in hand. But as I said, one of the big problems is our industry and hypes. And all of those hypes, they kind of destroy the thing that it was meant to be. So looking at hypes, one of the biggest hypes, right? AI. Everything is AI right now, right? I was walking in a store last weekend and I saw a vacuum cleaner with AI. I was like, what is this? So now everything is AI. And I think that's the same with platform engineering. So we need to get our industry and hypes, we need to do the things right. Same with Agile. We all do Agile development now, but I see so many companies still going in the dark for 12 to 24 months and then finally releasing something. Yeah, they built the thing in small sprints, but they weren't Agile. They had one idea up front and executed that in small pieces. That was not what Agile was about. And don't get me started about microservices, right? So microservices, yeah, everyone's doing microservices. All the tools can do microservices. And that's the same with platform engineering. A lot of the tool vendors now are jumping in the platform engineering space and then solving platform engineering by just selling you a tool. That's not how it works. So let's look at the first of the 5 issues that I see a lot when working with these platform engineering teams. I've set up a number of platform engineering teams at my customers, but I've also been on the other side of having to consume the products that platform engineering teams made at other customers. So what I often see is that these platform teams are often traditionally coming from more of the IT side of things instead of the developer side of things at companies. And what they do is they have the idea of, we just build something and then in the end everyone is going to use this, right? So I would like to call that the build it and they will come fallacy. They just build a platform and then expect that all the developers will love this product and it will make their life easier. I really don't believe that's true. I really believe that you should run your platform as a product, an optional product that developers can use if they like it, and if they don't like it, that they could just do it themselves. As I said, I believe in DevOps teams owning things from front to end, and if they choose to make their life easier by using your platform, then you actually get the right use of that platform. If they're forced onto that platform, or if they don't like how that platform works, you will run into all kinds of other things. And try to stay close how your developers actually want to use your platform. I already saw it in the poll, like how are you going to communicate with your developers, right? Do developers want web portals where they have to request all kinds of things? Or do they like things that are more close to their hearts, like a CLI, which they can just run from within the IDE, or using Git, which is the tool every developer knows and loves, and they don't have to make that much context switches from on one side going to this portal and then requesting some stuff and then going back to their code again. And when you're running your platform as a product, are you building the right features? Do you actually build the stuff that your developers need? So what I see happening a lot is people are building landing zones or building security platforms or application platforms. But are those the things that your developers are actually waiting for? I asked this question in the poll: who builds like blessed infrastructure templates? And I got like 95% of the people say they do. I really don't believe that this is something that developers are looking for. Because if you look at it, most of those templates, they, on one side, do not have all the requirements that different teams have. If you have to scale to, let's say, minimum of 10 teams, all of those 10 teams will have different requirements. They will need different parameters, etc. So if you build these kind of templates and enforce it on them, you will either be the bottleneck because they don't have the parameters that they expect you to be, or you create a really generic template that works for everyone, but then it's basically a template that does not add any value anymore. They can just take the original template that they build themselves that actually has their specific needs. So yeah, I often have this discussion, and you only have limited time, right? So build the stuff that really help your developers. But then people say to me, well, we do this for security and compliancy reasons. But is building templates actually the right use to do these kind of things? Of course, you could create a whole library of Terraform or Bicep that deploys these kind of things for you. But there's actually other stuff in Azure, like policies, that can check the right things for you, but you don't enforce the way you deploy it on those developers. So the developers themselves, the teams could decide themselves if they want to use Terraform or Bicep or use a CLI. You just define what should be the guardrails in which they should go. And on the other hand, if I look at those templates, and if they have a lot of parameters, and maybe I've seen teams also packaging them up into like build tasks that you can add to your pipeline, etc. Even more abstracting the infrastructure as code away for developers. I really don't understand what is the value add to that, because then you're adding another abstraction which developer needs to learn. And they either need to learn the actual infrastructure as code, or they need to learn your abstraction. And they need to know about the actual infrastructure as code anyway, because they need to know how that product runs if they run the actual infrastructures themselves as DevOps teams, right? So they want to know about all the features that are in there. So abstracting that away for those teams is not really that valuable. And as I said, if you build these kind of templates, and also it also goes for all kinds of other platforms, when you build such a thing, try to build it in the open, so other developers, your customers, can actually contribute to it, so you don't become the bottleneck that much. So this is the first issue that I wanted to talk to you about. So we have 4 lives left. Let's continue to the second one. So when building these platform teams, as I see at a lot of companies, they're often originally created through from the IT department itself. So a lot of IT pros there, which are often quite disconnected with the developer community that they're servicing. So as I said, you want to build a product team. You're actually building an internal product, so you need to know about the demand that your developers need. And it's called platform engineering, right? So engineering means you're actually building something. So it's not only doing operations, it's not rebranding your operations team to a platform engineering team so it's cool and hip and it's easier to hire people then. Now, if you actually put up vacancies for platform engineering to hire new operations people, this will not work, right? They will see through it in the interviews and not come to work for you. So when setting up such a team, what I like to do is follow a principle from a book that's called Team Topologies. And Team Topologies, they originally created years ago something that was called DevOps topologies, where they described how DevOps should really work and how those Dev and Ops teams should work together or be combined. And in this book, Team Topologies, they talk about DevOps teams as stream-aligned teams. And these stream-aligned teams, they build business software from front to end. So they are responsible for a value stream within your company of delivering that business value from front to end. But as I said, that's really hard. You need to know a lot of things, and it's really hard for such a team to actually being able to execute on all those different areas. So in the book, what they've defined a number of other teams. On the bottom, it's the platform team. And this is where platform engineering comes in. The platform team delivers a number of products, services that other teams can consume. And the streamlined team itself, they are in control of what they want to use as a product, what they want to do themselves, and they can make those choices. Then on the other hand, there's some other teams, not really that relevant for this talk, but I want to add it anyways. The complicated subsystem team is a team like if your value stream is that complex, so let's say you have to build a very hard algorithm, you could have a team that focuses on that algorithm by itself because it's so complex, but it does not add business value by itself, that algorithm. But you could have a team that just packages that up and delivers it to the streamlined team so they can integrate it into their product. And then finally, the enabling team. What I see happening in practice is that this is often mixed with the platform engineering team as well, or just called platform team, where the platform either builds products, but also goes into streamlined teams to help them by doing like internal consultancy or skilling up the people, bringing knowledge into those teams to get them sped up. But these are actually two different things, and you could have two different teams for that. You can, of course, combine those kind of things, but you have to think about what are we building as a product and what are we doing for helping teams. And because if you do this all in one team, it's very easy to start spending all your time in enabling those teams by just helping them hands-on. But this does not really scale well. So when you're running a product team, building this internal product, you really need the skills to actually run a full software development product, right? So you need product management. You need engineers to build stuff. You need to build documentation, so you actually, the developers that you want to help actually know how to use your products. And maybe do some internal consultancy on how to use those products. But as I said, be careful with that on where to spend your time. I see a lot of people moving and spending so much time on doing that internal consultancy. That means that the onboarding, the documentation, etc., those kind of things are often lacking because you need so much work in actually helping those teams. And have a team that's really focused on one thing. Are you building your cloud platform to do cloud infrastructure? Are you focused on building a application platform? Maybe a Kubernetes-based platform where it's easier for people to run containers somewhere. Are you building an API platform? Maybe a FinOps platform so people can get insights into their cost, etc. These different areas need different specialization of people. So get the right people on board when building your team. So on to the third one already. This third one, enforcing it on your users is, I think, the biggest mistake that I see. It's just everyone falls for it. As I said, you want to enable your developers. If you push products onto your developers, you're not getting the best product because they have to work with it. But that does not make it into the best product. And we're living in a time where hiring developers is really hard. And non-happy developers will eventually leave your company and will go work somewhere else. If you build a platform and enforce that on your users, do you really think that will lead into the best platform that will make your developers happy? I don't think so. So I think building the stuff that your developers really need will actually work best, and then developers will also be happier to use it, to contribute to it, all those kind of things. And so really try to focus on empowering your users and not trying to enforce all the stuff on your users. When you try to, and I see this happening at so many companies, when you try to enforce it on users, developers and engineers, we're smart people, right? We will find ways not to use it and use our other products. You will get a lot of shadow IT happening within your company. So yeah, you enforce one product on your engineers, and then you will have 5 or 10 different ones running somewhere in the back that you don't have any knowledge of. So try to build something that your developers want to use. Try to find something that your developers are really bugged with. If they have to wait for have to wait for a long time to get things done, or if it takes a lot of effort, try to build solutions that really work for those kind of things. And what I see happening a lot when you enforce these kind of platforms is you get something that's called malicious compliance. So yeah, people will use it, but then every time when something goes wrong, oh, yeah, we delivered our software too late. Yeah, that's because the platform did not work well. That's because we had to wait on the platform for this and that. You really get this you versus them approach, right? While I would opt for getting a good relationship with those developers, really helping them out, and then you don't get this blame game in between. And I understand that this can be quite hard because the traditional reflex is, we just need to do everything secure and compliant, so we need to enforce it on our users. But you can also tell those teams, well, you don't have to use it, but if you use it, then you are responsible for the security and compliancy and those kind of things. It's a small change, but this often makes it so that the teams will actually start using your platform because they don't want the extra burden of the security and compliance, etc., on their product. So let's go to the fourth one already. Not measuring. So when I checked before we actually started the presentation, I saw a lot of people are already measuring, which is really, really a good thing. But in practice, and I've seen so many of these teams already, is that measuring is not really happening that much, or not in the right ways. So when you invest in building a platform team, does that platform team actually deliver any value, or does it cost more than not running this platform? Do you actually get any return on investment on the time that you spend on building such a platform? Jussi said it in the initial presentation where he showed some picture of creating a cloud infrastructure, landing zone, enterprisey thing, which took 12 to 24 months to actually get that done. How much time and effort did that actually cost? And how much time does that save for the teams that you are enabling in the end? And are those the things that are blocking the developers the most? What I noticed in the poll that I did is almost no one was working on security platforms. When I work at large enterprises, security things are almost often the things that I have to wait on the most. Requesting firewall changes, network changes, all those kind of things. It's not uncommon that takes a couple of weeks for such a change to be executed, right? If you create self-service scenarios for those kind of things, that might actually really help your developers in making their life easier, while almost no one is actually investing in it. So let's look at how can we look at making measuring a bit better. Because in the end, when we're running our platform engineering team, our time is a zero-sum game, right? We only have X amount of time to work on stuff. So if we build one feature, we can't focus on the other. So try to spend your time wisely. Try to spend your time on the stuff that are blocking the developers the most. And instead of building really large platforms that does everything for your developers, try to build small things that can get going really fast, that can help your developers really fast, instead of building such a platform for 12 months and then enabling it for everyone. It can be very simple. It can be a very simple platform that only has one or two features if those features really help your developers. So try to know what your developers need. What are the things that are blocking them the most? And how do you actually know these kind of things? It's not that hard. You can start asking around in your company, like, what are the things that are blocking you the most for doing your actual work? Another thing you could do is things like value stream mapping. Look at the actual work that teams are doing from having an initial idea of building this new business capability to deploying it to production. And what is the time that it takes, and where is the waste in that process? Are they waiting a long time to request a production environment? Are the pipelines really slow? What are the things that teams spend their time on? And can we accelerate that? Really try to find where those bottlenecks are, especially looking at several teams. What are the commonalities between those different teams, and how can we enable those? Another thing that I really like is measuring can be really, really rewarding, right? It's when you build such a platform, knowing how your platform is being used, how much time is being saved, is actually quite a nice thing to see and see that you actually delivered some value. So what we did at a customer is we created this self-service scenario, and it was enabling developers to do something that would normally take them 2 hours to do by themselves. So what we did is we just had a dashboard of that we ran in the room where we worked as a team, and we just had a small dashboard showing the number of times it was being used by developers, and we just added 2 hours saved for each time that the automation was run. So with that, we just had a dashboard that says, well, so many hours saved, which gives a really nice feedback loop into, oh, this was actually valuable. We saved so many hours of the developers that they would otherwise have to do themselves. And this really brought joy to the developers that were building the platform. Oh, we're actually adding value to these developers. So on to our last live. The last issue that I see a lot, and this is also because our industry and all the tool vendors, is that there is so much focus on tools. Tools are not that important. Of course, we need tools to get stuff done, but we can do a lot of things without spending so much time on tools. Especially if you look at the platform engineering space and you try to search for platform engineering tools, you'll find one keyword popping up quite a lot, even more than AI, is Kubernetes, right? Kubernetes is all over the place, especially in the platform engineering space, because Kubernetes itself is really, really hard. So you need something like a platform to actually do this in a proper way. But do you really need Kubernetes to do platform engineering? Do you really need Kubernetes at all? I really beg to differ. Don't get me wrong. I really believe that Kubernetes has a number of features that are really, really valuable, especially for larger scale teams. But what I see happening is there are so many small teams taking up Kubernetes with all the extra labor that you need to do in running such a platform by itself, that it does not add up. It just try to come up with simpler solutions. And of course, the big hyperscalers see this as well, so you get solutions like they were just announced on build, like AKS Automatic, which is like Kubernetes with batteries included. So maybe times are changing a little bit, but really think twice in, do I need such platforms to do my platform engineering, or do I need such a platform at all, before you dive into it directly and start building all your tools on top of it. And what I think, and I saw it in the poll already, is that you already have a lot of tools, even maybe if you don't know it. And I saw a lot of people actually do know they have the right tools and do it in the right way. Because what I think, you already have tools like source control, Git. You already have CI/CD tools, pipelines, automations, etc. And this can be a really, really nice base to get your platform engineering team going. So this is an example of what we did at a customer who wanted to make it easier for teams to just request a new environment to start running their application. So they wanted to request a cloud subscription. They wanted to request an Azure DevOps project that goes with it, had all the connections already set up, etc. So you could just enter your code and deploy it straight away. So what we did is we created a central repository that was accessible by anyone. And people could just add a file like this, where they would request a number of things. So you could request a number of subscriptions. You could add a number of team members. You could have all kinds of additional settings, like do I also want Azure DevOps connected to it and all the service connections already made towards these subscriptions. And by entering this file, everyone could just do this, create a pull request. We would have some automation that would check if the file was valid. And if it was valid, an automation would run, and all the stuff would be created for them. So a couple of minutes later, they would have their Azure subscription, their Azure DevOps project, the service connections. If they were running Terraform, all the stuff for storing your state would be already there. Like creating something with batteries included so they could just get going. And we didn't have to install any tools for this. We didn't want to be the police agent before anyone would request these kind of scenarios. So what we did is, if you would add team members, we would create a pull request and we would actually ask the existing team members for approval. And the nice thing is, if you store all this in Git, you already have your audit trail of who did what changes, and when were these changes made. So you have a full history of all the things that happened to your team, and all the changes that were made through history. So if you start building a platform, use tools like this instead of buying stuff commercially off the shelf. As I said, Git really, really works well. Then another tool, I'm curious, a show of hands. Backstage is like taking over the industry as a storm. Like, who is using Backstage for their development portal? Only a couple of hands. Okay, Backstage is quite a nice tool built by Spotify, which is an open source tool that gives you insights into all kinds of things and also enables some self-service for you. So it's really easy to hook up your cloud environment, your CI/CD tools, all kinds of things, and get one view of your whole landscape, which sounds nice, but when I see this in practice, it's like the one pane of glass promise. Of course, that they promise, right? But I've read this quote, and it always sticks to me when I see Backstage being used at customers. If you put a pane of glass over a piece of shit, you still see the shit that you created, right? So, yeah, Backstage can be a really useful tool, but don't try to make it the one tool that solves all your problems. Make it really specific to maybe find certain things, because that's the thing that we run into often. Make sure that the developers who want to use your tools actually know how to use them tools and how to find where they can use the tools. And when you're building a platform, and that's also why I like Git and those kind of tools, because then authentication and signing on, etc., is already fixed for you. If you're building a portal, please, if you're building a portal, and in some cases this might be a good solution, make sure that you have things like single sign-on enabled, etc. Just to make the life of those developers easier. And think about when you're building platforms like this, security is really key, right? If you make mistakes here, your mistakes scale out through all of the teams, because your platform has access to all of the different teams. So make sure security is always one of the key aspects that you that you focus on. It's hard to bolt that later on. So do that from the beginning in the right way. Oh. That was not. My laptop was a bit slow. So Lastly, you can't do a conference talk nowadays without mentioning the other hype, AI. What I see is that a lot of teams are struggling with doing AI. And how do I enable an AI in such a way that I have the right guardrails, etc., to use? So building a platform for teams to enable AI is also quite a new kind of platform that you could try to build, especially if you're working with a lot of sensitive data and those kind of things, making sure that you give teams the tools to do this in a proper way, instead of seeing all this shadow IT happening and people using all kind of tools that are out there on the internet that they can use for free. And they can use it for free because they're not the consumers, but they're part of the product, right? So think about this. If you want to enable your developers with AI, this could also be one of the features that you build as a platform team. So with that, actually came to the end. Small recap of the 5 things that I see happening at a lot of companies and how to try to avoid it. Really try to focus on your customer needs. Try to focus on what those developers actually need. And build a team that is capable of building and running such a full service. Try not to enforce it on your users. Make it so that developers want to use the product. Try to measure that you're actually doing the right things. And try not to focus too much on tools in the beginning. If you Google platform engineering, the first couple of pages will all be full of vendors trying to sell you platform engineering with one tool which does not work out of the box. So with that, I would like to thank you very much. On to lunch.
Thank you.